Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled.
From the studio gym where excuses never apply,
It's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. And today is a really important show, especially if you're aging like me and you want to age gracefully. We have to thank our title sponsor, Legendary Foods. EatLegendary.com is their website. They have the new tasty pastry, which is the guilt-free Pop-Tart 2.0 with 9 grams of protein, less than 1 gram of sugar. It is the guilt-free alternative to a Pop-Tart. Your kids can eat them. They're delicious. They've got them back in stock. Many of you were complaining, you're trying to order them and they run out so quick, but all those production things are solved now. So there's plenty of them to eat. Go to eatlegendary.com and get yours today. And while you're there, take a look at some of their amazingly decadent, guilt-free nut butters with no added sugar. Flavors like you won't believe. So check them out. So those of you who are aging like me know that there are certain circumstances that make you reach for your, I got to drop this image, that make you reach for your flashlight, like in a restaurant, if you're trying to read the menu, for instance. And my guest today is Leslie Burke. She holds the distinction of being my longest running sponsor on this show. She's been a sponsor of this show for probably pretty close to the entire 14 years that I've been producing it. How you doing, Leslie? Nice to see you.
I'm doing great. I have the hair color to prove it, Carl.
Yeah, there you go. We both do. I'm getting mine colored tomorrow. It's all gray right now. I've got my hair cut and color set up for tomorrow.
I gave up a few years ago.
But you know what? It really looks good on you because you were always blonde anyway. So it's just kind of it's just like a variation of blonde now.
Yeah, I guess so. I've been many colors, Carl, as most of us women have been. So,
you know what I find really interesting? Have you seen some of the kids with the gray hair? The gray is in like they.
Oh yeah, I'm in high fashion right now.
That color is a color that young ladies strive to obtain.
Yeah, I planned it that way.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. So there's a little sneaky tell about age. We can color our hair, we can stay in great shape, do all sorts of great things cosmetically to look better. But one of the sneaky little tells that creeps out is our eyes. Right now, it's estimated over 24 million adults suffer from something called night blindness. And it's really an annoying little thing. It's called Nyctalopia, if you want the technical name. The NIH says that by the age of 75, 50% of people will suffer from night blindness. And what it does is it does two things to us. A lot of older people stop driving because the glare of oncoming headlights blinds them so completely that they literally lose view of the road and the line. They're not sure if they're in the lane, out of the lane. They get panicked. They don't want to drive anymore. So that's terrible. Once you lose your independence, you can't drive anymore. It changes your life dramatically. The other thing it does that's a little less dangerous, but equally annoying is, you go someplace to a restaurant and everybody at your table is reading the menu, but you've got to get your iPhone out and you got to hit the little flashlight app because you just need that little extra light to be able to break through the cloudiness of the crystalline lens. And we're talking about night blindness not associated with retinal issues or optic nerve issues. We're talking about what is considered traditional night blindness. And this is an area of expertise that you've spent a very, very long time in. You see this a lot, don't you, with the people that reach out to you?
Well, yes. And as I was saying to you earlier, Carl, it really is a symptom of the decline of health of the eye, of the aging process of the eye. It's not always a cataract. It can just be the aging lens. The lens, as we know, thickens as we get older. But it is very disturbing, and it's not something to be ignored. It's definitely a tell of what's happening to the health of your eyes. Dr. Babachev, the Russian doctor that I've worked with for many, many years, actually developed a device to test the halos from night blindness. Okay, so like when you're driving and you see those weird halos and distortions of oncoming lights, that's a form of night blindness. And he was actually able to measure this kind of intangible thing, to measure, which is what degree of night blindness do you have? Well, good luck measuring that. And he developed something called the halometer, or the halometer. And with that device, he was kind of exploring the early symptoms of the loss of vision. And night blindness was one of his key focus points for his research, trying to find out what was causing this, what deficiencies or imbalances were leading to it, which led ultimately to the development of the product that I've worked with for so many years. But it is, excuse me, I'm going to lose my voice.
Okay, take your time. Don't worry.
Hopefully it's not the coronavirus.
I know you're in Washington State, right? I mean,
Yeah, I'm up here in the epicenter.
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting topic for the show today, because it does impact so many things. I mean, you can actually lose your license over this, which is a huge fear for people.
Yeah.
But it can also be an indicator of beginning cataract.
Right.
So, there's several things to be aware of when, and you want to pay attention to it. Don't go into hopelessness. There are some wonderful options. But if your blood sugars are off, if you're, hypoglycemic or you're pre-diabetic, a lot of those things can lead to that early symptom. And that can be corrected. So that's
so interestingly enough, I have been starting to connect dots over the past 3 or 4 years. I've really been on a mission to understand the origins of autoimmune disorders. Mm-hmm. A lot of people with autoimmune disorders have gut problems. Those gut problems also lead to acid reflux, regular episodes of acid reflux. Mm-hmm. These people end up with inflammatory lung disorders because they are literally aspirating the acid that's coming up from their stomach day in and day out. Now, that acid, over time, if it's untreated, if they don't fix their gut and they have this constant, let's say 5 or 6 bouts a day where they're belching and this acid is coming up, this atomized chime that's in this gut along with acid is coming up. Over time, they start to develop sinus problems. Their nose is always stuffed. Well, the other problem is that their eyes start to get dry. After a couple years of this constant caustic barrage of gases hitting the skull and the oral cavity, the eyes, and then these people start to suffer from dry eye. It's called idiopathic dry eye. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are given drops. It just gets worse and worse and worse. They get corneal thinning from it, and it's a downward spiral from there. And I've started to question the possibility that this caustic environment absolutely has the potential to dry out the crystalline lens faster maybe than just normal aging. The NIH says, get used to it. Night blindness is part of aging, but there's a lot of people out there that don't have night blindness that are 80 years old. So clearly there's something different. And I started to question the linkage between esophageal reflux disorders, sinus problems, and dry eye.
Well, as we know, everything comes from the gut, right? I mean,
yes,
it is the starting point for health. If that isn't right, you're kind of, you're treating symptoms and reactions of that imbalance. I totally am in agreement with you. It's so interesting what you say, Carl, because there's a famous doctor, Dr. Latcani, who wrote a book called Dry Eye Syndrome. And his theory, and he's a famous eye doctor, his theory is that almost every degenerative eye condition is a result of unchecked dry eye syndrome.
Interesting.
That imbalance causes the decline of everything else. It depletes all the eye's resources, because we know the minute the eye is at all dry, you've shifted from an alkaline state into a very acidic state. Okay. And the eye is probably the most sensitive organ in the body to that imbalance. The eye has to be alkaline. I simply advise people occasionally to just get a good lubricant, use an eye wash to check the bacteria load. And oddly, within days, they start seeing vision improvements just by kind of supporting that balance. Now what you're saying, see, again, I'm treating the result of possibly a stomach problem.
Right.
But I'm dealing with it, right? By giving that kind of advice to people. But people are just shocked, because what happens also when the eye is a little more acidic is the bacteria load in the eye goes up. So now whatever remaining immune responses are functioning in the eye are completely taken up with fighting that extra bacteria load instead of healing and repairing the eye.
Right.
So if you have a degenerative condition starting, it's going to go downhill very fast because of that kind of imbalance. And that's the one thing we know about the eye, is that it can improve very quickly. It has a very fast healing response if, the homeostasis is good, the balance is good, but it can also go down and you can lose your vision. People sometimes they'll say, I feel like I lost my vision overnight.
Right.
It happens very quickly. All of a sudden they just can't see, well, so many times it's just that simple balance. It's amazing how well the eye responds when you get the balance right.
Yeah, it's a very delicate. I don't know if you know this, but I had a corneal ulcer last year. I was wearing a contact lens. I felt like there was something under the lens. I was in the car. I couldn't pull over.
I did hear about this.
And I just pulled the lens down once and let it go up, and whatever was under there just caused a scratch across the cornea. I went to the doctor. She said, no contact lenses. I had a trip planned to go to Indianapolis that I had to drive for. I didn't want to drive with one contact lens. I asked her. She gave me a very, very high hydrophilic lens to wear on the right eye. And she gave me some eye drops that were steroid-based eye drops. She told me to put them on 3 times a day. I used them like a lubricant. I was using them. I used the whole bottle in 2 days. The bottle should have lasted me 2 weeks. It basically put the immune system of my right eye to sleep, and I contracted a fungal infection that gave me a very large corneal ulcer. But I used techniques, including Can-C eye drops, and to this day, they can't believe I have a little bit of a scar that creates just a tiny little bit of double vision up at the 10 o'clock area of my peripheral vision. But other than that, I'm pretty much back to normal. Now, they told me, they were telling me corneal transplant. And I'm like, I don't want a corneal transplant. Don't I have to use steroids for the rest of my life? And I'll never forget it. The doctor, well-meaning, says, yeah. I said, but then I'll develop a cataract. And he said, well, we have a surgery for that. And I'm like, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. What are you talking about? We have a surgery for that? I says, no, I says, I'll live with the eye the way it is. And I'm shooting. I mean, I still go to the range and I hunt and I do all the things. Yeah, but it's because I used my Can-C eye drops every day, twice a day. Yeah. And I also used eye drops made with something called thymosin beta-4, which are great studies now showing it can completely and permanently reverse dry eye. But it's not approved yet by the FDA for that use. But there are clinical trials, and I happen to, have a connection with a pharmacy, and they made it for me, and that really changed the outcome of my eye. Otherwise, I would be pretty much blind in my right eye right now.
So are you still using that product, Carl?
I make it occasionally. Now I make it myself. And
make it yourself?
Yeah, I buy the raw thymosin beta-4 peptide from a company called Peptide Sciences, and I put it into a buffered aqueous saline solution with no preservatives. So I keep it refrigerated, and I'll use 2 drops a day for a couple weeks, and then I'm done. And I just do it every so often, and because I started to get dry eye from the cornea. He said to me, "Yeah, you'll probably get dry eye because of the trauma." And I don't have dry eye at all. I'm wearing a hydrophilic contact lens, and it's fine. So that thymosin beta-4 really does work.
Yeah, that's good to know. I think you've mentioned that to me before, and I need to do more research on that because there's so many people. But I tell you, if you have not suffered with chronic dry eye problem, you just don't have a clue how debilitating it can be. And just imagine sand in your eyes, basically your eyes feeling like you can't close your lids over your eye. And, people are having to put lubricants in, constantly during the day. Women can't wear their makeup. They're messing with eye washes. It is a really painful, debilitating. It really disrupts your lifestyle if you have chronic dry eye. And unfortunately, that is a very common outcome post-ocular surgery.
Mm-hmm. Sure, the trauma. Yeah.
Enough, in my opinion. I think that is something that really should be communicated better to people, because often surgeries are being conducted just for, it's not at a critical point yet. And we're going in and having eye surgeries, maybe to improve something that's already still functioning right. Okay. And so there are, these surgeries are amazing. They have really come a long way, but they are not without risk.
No, I get it. Mm-hmm. So A.B. Jones, who also said he recently purchased some Can-C eye drops and is hoping it helps. He says, I sit in front of a computer for hours a day and recently switched contact brands that are designed to hold moisture. I think it helps, but I probably need a new job. What role does what we do right now every day, sit in front of our computer, sit with a phone in front of our face, is that contributing anything, you think, to the changing opacity of the crystalline lens?
Oh, yeah, that blue light. I mean, that light coming from the computer screens is very damaging. When I first started working in this business, I felt like I lost my vision within 4 months, because I was actually doing coding for a website I was building. And that staring at that screen with your eyes open for long periods of time, it's like you can just see your vision leaving you. Right. It just starts going away from you. Can-C, we sell Can-C to thousands of computer programmers because it does help tremendously. Now, again, when you stress your eyes like that on a daily basis, and they're getting dried out. So there's several things that we would recommend. You would want to do higher dosing of Can-C in the beginning, because what you're doing is you're reestablishing an essential amino acid that becomes depleted when the eyes are stressed. And we know this from the research that was conducted in Russia. And so simply by reestablishing optimal, and it's L-carnosine levels in the eye and in the eye lens, you arm the eye or equip it to heal and repair and recover better. So the drops themselves aren't really doing anything other than reestablishing the eye's own system of recovery to its optimal level. When we stress the eyes, we take that away from the eye. So yes, to answer his question, it would be tremendous for him. I would also suggest using a preservative-free lubricant throughout the day. And of course, most computer programmers know this, but taking your eyes off the screen and looking at a distance, that kind of thing.
So that phenomenon, and see, I'm nearsighted, right? And so when I grew up as a kid, I sat in front of the TV, I very rarely looked off in the distance. Yeah. So what people need to understand is that the crystalline lens has is harnessed by muscles that are attached to it, and they pull and push to change the refractive ability of the lens. It gets thinner to see far away. It gets thicker. The base curve changes to see up close, and it's doing this all day long. When you're sitting in front of a computer and you're just staring at this, it's locked in that position. Think of your muscle. If you picked up a dumbbell and just held it here, how long could you actually hold it there before it starts to tax? The shoulder has to start working now, and all the other muscles have to make up for it because the bicep just wants to let go.
Yeah, it's a form of atrophy.
Yes, and it actually changes the shape of the globe of the eye, because it's pulling on the eye is this globe that all these muscles inside are pulling on. And so what happens is when you sit and look at something up close, it changes the shape of the eye to a football instead of a sphere. And this has been associated with nearsightedness because people have more of a football-shaped eye.
Vision. Yeah, you give up your distance vision to be on those computer screens all day long is what your sacrifice. That's the sacrifice you're making. And the thing with CanC, as I said, is, you're establishing the L-carnosine levels, which supports the health of those muscles. Okay, and that focusing response. And when I say do a preservative-free lubricant in between, because CanC, there is a dose there. You don't want to go above it. You want to do a dose every day. You want to be consistent every day. But the good news is as soon as you get those levels reestablished, and you know how you tell when the levels are reestablished? You start seeing better.
Yeah.
And it's usually within 90 days. I mean, this is not something we ask people to do for 3 years.
Yeah.
You actually start seeing the improvements quite quickly. And so somewhere between that 90-day point and 6-month point, depending on how serious your condition is, it'll take a little longer to see the improvements if your condition is worse, or to see acceptable improvement, I guess I should say. And so once you see those improvements, guess what? You reduce the dose down to half the recommended amount. Because once those levels are established, if you remain consistent with lower dosing, it's very easy to keep them there. And that's all you need to do because the eye is actually doing this. The eye is doing the work. You've just supported the functionality of the eye now. So we're one of the few people in the world that tell people to take less of our product as they go along. But it's just very obvious. It's very clear. And Dr. Babachev, the Russian doctor, bless his heart, was very serious about this. He said, you don't want the eye to be, too supported in one way. There's a balance that he really talked about. There's other beneficial amino acids in the eye. So you don't want to just keep slamming this one big note all the time. It is important to reduce the dosing after 3 to 6 months. As soon as you see that improvement, you can be very confident. And actually, guess what? The improvements continue even though you lower the dosing. Just by maintaining that state, the eye is trying to find its rightful balance. It wants to be there. It's self-correcting. So just let it do the work. Keep supporting it with CanC and keeping the eye lubricated. Keep that pH balance good in the eye. Do an eye wash once in a while. That checks the bacteria load. Those 3 things change.
So here's something funny. I just posted this. But first of all, I want to reach out to. So we're going to answer all the questions that are sitting here. Mike, I'm going to get to your question in just a second because this is exactly what CanC is best for. But you got to give it time. See, I've been using CanC for almost 14 years. I noticed the difference when I take a few months off and I'm like, oh man, I can't see up close. And then I start using it again. So my problem is the opposite. I use it consistently. And then when I don't use it, my eyes start to get bad again. But I just put up my grandparents had a yellow box with a blue glass eye-shaped cup that came with it, and they used to wash their eyes with it when I was a kid. I don't see that anymore. Eye washes.
You can buy them in the drugstore. They're usually on the bottom shelf. You get an eye wash kit. It's just saline solution with that little cup, and it works beautifully. And I'll tell you, once you do it, you never stop because it feels heavenly to your eyes. You can't believe how much better you sleep. It is very soothing. There's not an ounce of irritation when you do this. You feel your whole face relax. So, that solution just goes in there and soothes everything. So for anybody who does anything that stresses their eye, doing an eye wash 2 or 3 times a week, I just can't stress enough. And Dr. Latkani, the doctor who wrote the dry eye syndrome book, that was one of the techniques and one of the things he suggested for extending the longevity of your eyesight. And that's where I got that piece of information. I use it myself, and it is just incredible.
So, Mike, yes, if you're having trouble driving at night, that's exactly what we're talking about here. CanC is best at this sort of thing because what's happening is the crystalline lens of your eye is starting to get opaque. It's like a dirty windshield. It takes time, but what the CanC does is it reestablishes and puts the clarity back into the crystalline lens. It also makes it more flexible and supple. So all of a sudden, you don't need the reading glasses as much as you did before. You can start to see up close because those muscles that contract and flex the crystalline lens are able to do it again. That's all when you develop presbyopia, which is the actual term for not being able to read up close or see up close anymore, the change is the crystalline lens just can't flex to that 25 diopters it used to flex to. It's stopping at maybe your 20, and so your arm has to get longer in order to see things. But this is where this product excels. It improves the quality of the crystalline lens, which improves the clarity of the crystalline lens, and it's the clarity changes that cause night blindness. It's the clarity that causes oncoming headlights to glare instead of just
and
that
that's
beam.
one of the first things we tell people to look for when they start using our product, is they start paying attention to that glare. That glare factor is one of the first things that starts to improve when the lens starts to clear up a little bit. So you have Dr. Babachev described it this way. It's like you're holding a piece of gauze in front of your face. And if you stretch that piece of gauze out far enough, you can see the threads, and yet you can still see through it. And as you stretch it even further, pretty soon you're watching through it, but you don't even see the threads anymore. Okay. So these little lipid proteins that are sticking to the crystalline lens and sticking together and sticking all over the place, causing that clouding up response of the lens. What carnosine allows the eye to do is remove that sticky factor. They start becoming slippery again, because they've been floating around in your eye all your life. They weren't causing you a problem until they started sticking to the lens. Okay. So that's that glycation, what they call the glycation index, the sugar index in the eye. And carnosine is just beautiful. That's why it's a great supplement for people with diabetes. Okay.
Interesting.
Because it really affects that. It's great for cardiovascular health. Okay, if you take it orally. This is a very special form of L-carnosine. They call it N-acetylcarnosine because it's suitable for topical application to the eye, and it's very bioavailable. So not only is this, floating around in your eye when you put these drops in the research they did, they found that they were elevating L-carnosine levels in the cornea, the retina, all the muscle systems in the eye. So this is why we see improvements for people with glaucoma, with macular degeneration. It's a fundamental amino acid that the eye must have to heal and repair. And,
tell us, before we go into this break, briefly, tell the story that people probably haven't heard before about how Dr. Babachev looked at 50,000 cadaver eyes to determine that it was this one data point that they all had in common when they had problems with their eyes.
Yeah, this research was fascinating because they were simply looking at the distinctions between healthy eye tissue and unhealthy eye tissue. They didn't really even know what they were looking for. But in Russia, the government just sends money to the different universities. It's not for a product development effort. It's not, they're just doing it for pure science. And they were simply looking at, what is different about healthy eyes and unhealthy eyes. And they kept finding, they found there was glutathione deficiencies, L-carnosine deficiencies, L-cysteine deficiencies. They saw all these things, but there was one that was the most dominant, and that was L-carnosine. The eyes of healthy eye tissue still had some levels of L-carnosine in them, and unhealthy eye tissue was completely void of L-carnosine. So they found that if they depleted the eyes of the test subjects of carnosine, they developed cataract very quickly. It was a very easy way, other than trauma, to develop cataract. And so then the question arose, well, what if we reintroduced L-carnosine? Would we see a reversal response in the eyes? They used cataract as the model, even though oxidation is a component of every single degenerative eye condition. Okay, it is a component of macular degeneration, glaucoma, retinal problems, you name it. But they used cataract as the model simply because they could get such great before and after pictures. It was the perfect model for a science study. So they found a way to, first they just did raw L-carnosine. They had rodents, and they had rodents with cataract, and they put the L-carnosine in their eyes. They got a dramatic reversal response, but the L-carnosine in that crude form broke down into various free radicals. It didn't behave well in the eye over long term, so they had to refine it. and they contacted a Japanese chemical company that works with these peptides at the molecular level for purity factors, stabilization, bioavailability, and they refined it so that it behaves exactly like our own natural L-carnosine does in the eye. And they tested it for over 2 years, simply because they have the funding there, and it's not for pharmaceutical purposes.
Right, they weren't trying to develop a product, right?
Yeah. And so they found that even after 2 years of application, there was no free radical buildup. There was no negative side effects. That's the beauty of this product. There's absolutely no side effects. It's only health improvement. And I've been working with the product now for 15 years. So almost 20. I don't want to admit
time goes so fast.
I know, but it has just been such an incredible experience to see so many people have so many improvements over those years with something that has just proven itself out to be safe and effective.
We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll pick it up with this discussion. Also, we have a question from Christine Fox that we'll put up there. We're talking right now with Leslie Burke from wisechoicemedicine.com. You can go there and get your CanC eye drops. There are a few products that I have used in my life that I continue to use for 14 years. This is one of them because I can see the changes when I don't use it. I can see them. And so it's something I will use for the rest of my life. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? The rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor, strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon.
This is the Superhuman Channel. Evolution just got kicked up a notch.
Welcome back. We're talking with Leslie Burke from Wise Choice Medicine. They make a product called CanC eye drops that you cannot live without. The sooner you start using them, you'll keep your vision intact longer as you age. Aging, the changes in your eyes are not a normal part of aging, and you don't have to accept them. And I am living proof of that. I still don't wear reading glasses. I don't have any problems with night vision. And I know that the ophthalmologist that I saw for my corneal abrasion, they took images of my retina. They said my eyes look amazing. I mean, and I'm 61 years old. I'll be 62 this year. And none of my friends can read without reading glasses. None of them. Elisa can, because she uses CanC with me. She can. That's the one thing she can thank me for. I turned her on to CanC eye drops. So I'm going to try to pronounce this properly. It looks like Christine Fox. She says, "What do you think about Visomidin drops?" It's Skolachev. She's not sure about the spelling. Ions. She's using it now. She likes them, and she's using it for dry eye and mild cataracts. Have you heard anything about this?
I wonder if it's a homeopathic. That almost sounds like a homeopathic word. I'm not sure. I think anything that feels good to your eyes and doesn't have awful chemicals in them, if you are, calming them down and supporting, the pH in your eye effectively, you are doing something wonderful for your vision, because the eyes are just such an amazing machine that we still don't really even understand it. They know, for example, they know that, people who have dementia or any kind of cognitive function disabilities, the percentage is like 3 to 1 or 4 to 1 of people who have that if they have vision problems. They have any kind of retinal problems. There's a real correlation there. Mm-hmm. But the point, back to her question, is if they feel good to you and they're calming things down and they're helping you with your dry eyes, they're going to, if you help the pH and support the immune function in the eye that way, it will even slow down the growth of the cataract. This is saying that you don't have some type of terrible autoimmune disease that you're battling, or that you have to be on steroids or even thyroid medication. There's different medications that certainly can induce aggressive cataract.
The thing that if you are, so I take 1 grain of armor-thyroid a day as an anti-aging.
Mm-hmm.
But hyperthyroidism and or taking too much thyroid medication, especially Synthroid, which they always have a hard time zeroing you in for a few years, that will cause cataracts. One of the things that you can do, 2 things you can do to avoid that. Number 1, use Can-C eye drops. Number 2, use melatonin at bedtime. The one thing that has been shown to protect the eyes from developing cataracts in an environment of hyperthyroidism is melatonin.
Yeah.
And so it's magic. And
melatonin, the studies with melatonin and macular degeneration are incredible.
I know. And now even melatonin for glaucoma they're showing now.
Oh yes. In fact, we have a protocol for people with glaucoma or macular degeneration using a combination of the particular melatonin formula that was used in the clinical trial, because it is bonded with selenium and zinc. So it's a very unique formulation that was used, and the success rate was incredible.
Do you offer that at Wise Choice Medicine?
We do. It's called ARMED, ARMED is the name of the product. So you're armed against ARMD, so to speak.
Cool. I like that.
So yes, that's an incredible formula. So yeah, we kind of target, we focus with, we have a laser focus on visual problems, and so we have different products for that. The Can-C, which we're talking about today, is the flagship. It's the big daddy, the one that does everything and should be taken.
Well, I want to throw something out there for Chrysis. I mean, you're the largest portion of your clients are people who have been diagnosed with cataract, but they are trying to do everything they can to avoid cataract surgery.
Right.
And I mean, you heard the commercial that I played earlier, did you not? There's a guy named Chad who listens to the show. He's been using Can-C for 6 years. He was on dexamethasone eye drops for long-term problem he had. It gave him a cataract. Nothing, and he's tried everything. Can-C eye drops made the cataract go away, and his doctor can't find the cataract anymore. Yeah, so, I don't know, Chrysis, use the product you're using, give it a fair shake, see what you notice. But if you don't notice anything, try Can-C, because that is the largest bulk of your people, right? The people who come to you, they reverse cataracts with it. Yeah,
exactly. And I would say to her, she can use Can-C in combination with that lubricant drop. We have many people who, and that's the thing I do want to stress. I keep telling her to use a lubricant. You can do that in between, because again, your dosing with Can-C is simply morning and night. And if you have any kind of dry eye problem, the pH of the eye needs to be, corrected. You're going to be wanting to use a lubricant in between your Can-C eye drops, and they don't conflict with any medication. Even if you're on glaucoma meds, you can use Can-C. You would want to space the applications apart from one another sufficiently. But to our knowledge and to date, they conflict with no medication. And Carl, I just wanted to say, how you said that you would quit using Can-C for several months and then you'd notice your vision getting a little worse. That's the thing. People say, well, do I have to use this forever? Well, it's kind of like how you take vitamin C. And so, you sort of build up your immune system in the eye, you're using Can-C, and again, very low dosing will keep you there. But if you quit entirely, the same imbalance or deficiency due to aging and very busy lifestyle, being on computer screens, what have you, that deficiency will return without using Can-C. So this is not something you want to just take short term, see the improvement, and then walk away from. Because
you can, but your eyes will get bad again. But see, I don't understand that logic. Is this something that I'll have to do forever? Well, let's see. Your vision sucks. You use it. Your vision gets good. Like okay, so you're gonna wash your floor forever. You don't wash it once when you move into the house and then you're done. It's like there's everything that's important. You probably want to do forever. Because it'll keep your vision.
Out. You have to work out forever.
Yeah. Wow. Do I have to lift weights forever? Yeah, I hope so. I want to. So the next question comes from somebody I've known my whole life. Actually, she's like my sister. We know each other since we were babies. Tracy Passananti Negrado. She says she's just starting to struggle with vision and more spiders. She's probably talking about floaters. Does this help with the black spots? It does help with the floaters, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely helps with floaters. And this is something that, again, you won't have to wait too long to see those improvements. Now, floaters will go away of their own accord, if the eye is somewhat healthy. But if you are being plagued with floaters, you do want to pay attention because there is an imbalance happening. That is a sign of stress. So you want to kind of take a look at your blood sugar levels, at your stress level.
She's been under stress lately too.
Okay, emotional stress. I can't tell you how many people have contacted us after the loss of a spouse or after caring for a drug addict son, over a long period, or caring for a patient or a parent who has dementia. Those kinds of stresses, ongoing, people will have retinal detachments. They will have great vitreal detachments with the big sludgy floaters that really affect the vision. So you really want to pay attention to, dealing with whatever it is that's stressing you. Again, our endocrine system and the eyes, they're just, that cortisol really affects the vision and is, attacks the retina, attacks the health of the eyes. So CanC definitely helps the eye cope better. And it will definitely support the whole healing response in the eye, which is the beauty of it. Again, keeping the eye, the pH good, doing an eye wash once in a while. Those two things also I would highly recommend.
The aqueous and vitreous humor have a great deal of vitamin C in them. So I would also say, try supplementing with vitamin C if you're not already. No, you don't have to take a gram a day. You can take 250 milligrams a day. Vitamin C affects not only the aqueous and vitreous humor, but the filling inside your discs, inside your spinal discs. It's about 50% vitamin C. And so, and a lot of people are vitamin C deficient today. We know that. So that's another thing that you should consider. And your eyes are affected by your metabolism, as you point out. There are days you wake up and you go, my God, I don't understand that. My vision's so terrible today. And then the next night you get a really good night's sleep, and you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, my vision is great again. The eyes are really the canary in the mine for what's going on in your body.
Absolutely. Or if you had a piece of cake the night before.
Yeah.
This is what I find is that, during the holiday time is when people are contacting us and they just, gosh, I don't know what's happening with my eyes. They seem to be getting worse. And, they've been on a binge of treats for a whole month, Right. And so even just having some kind of sweet dessert before bed the night before, in the morning, you'll notice your vision isn't as good. Right. Your eyes really do. They are the windows to the body, if you will.
Yeah, we say the soul, right? It's the windows to inside what's going on inside you. It is. You're right.
Exactly. And we have to take care of them. It's kind of the thing that we just don't know to take care of.
Right.
It's not like we don't talk, we just don't talk about it a lot. And, you just think, oh, go to the eye doctor. And he says, okay, you're getting beginning cataracts. So I'll let you know when you need to have surgery. Okay. You just sort of, we have kind of a hands-off approach to it. And there really are some wonderful tools out there that can make a huge difference. And so it's good that you're having these shows, Carl, and letting people know these things. And
the other thing is a cataract surgery is it's not a 100% solution for your vision. Because I had the great pleasure of working for Dr. Miriam Shearing when I lived in Las Vegas. And she's the person who invented the clip lens. The clip lens is the lens that literally clips on inside the muscles that they replace the crystalline lens with. So the way they do a cataract surgery is they do a keyhole iridectomy. They cut a little piece of your iris out, usually high up because your eyelid will cover it up when it's back where it belongs. They go in and they irrigate and excavate. They squirt saline in, and they have this thing that's like a vacuum cleaner with teeth on it, and they chop the lens up and they suck it up. And then they put a little glass lens with two little metal clips on the side that they suture into place in the muscles that used to hold the crystalline lens. And all of a sudden, you can see clearly again. Yeah, and things are bright again. And you're like, wow. But here's the problem. The lens is parfocalized. It's parfocalized for life at about 20 feet away. So you still need reading glasses to see up close because the lens can't flex. It's glass now. It can't go squash down and you still need distance glasses to drive far away. So people who get cataract surgery, they go, Why do I have to wear glasses? Because that is like a prosthetic leg. It doesn't walk on its own anymore. It's just there. You can manipulate it to make it look like you're walking. So it's parfocalized for about 20 feet away. You can see everything within that distance, some of it blurry, some of it not so blurry. The other problem is a lot of people complain about something called prism imbalance. And the doctor says, well, you have to get used to it. All of a sudden, when you're looking out there, the floor looks like it's round. Mm-hmm. It's called prism imbalance. Now, when you look at the floor, it looks fine. But when you're looking out there, everything in the periphery looks like it's distorted. It's out of shape, like fisheye, they call it. You have to get used to that. So by all means, try everything you can before the last resort, which would be a cataract surgery. Try everything you can, whatever it is, this one, that one, these vitamins, these eye drops, until you find something that starts to move the needle. When you find something that starts to move the needle, stick with it long enough, and you probably won't have to get the cataract surgery. Your ophthalmologist won't tell you this. They won't tell you this. They won't say, try Can-C eye drops first, and if that doesn't work, come back in 6 months and we'll do the surgery. They just schedule you for surgery.
Well, and I don't want to, scare people to death about surgery. I mean, thank God we have it if we really need it. And eye doctors don't tell us about Can-C or things like that because they're not trained that way. They do what they're trained to do, and they stick with that model. And of course, they're terrified of lawsuits, of doing anything out of what their protocol is. We just have to recognize, as we do with any other part of our body or medicine, that these doctors now are very specialized in one area and one, kind of their trained methodology of treatment. So we are the directors of our own health. It's great to go there and get a diagnosis, and then you direct what that treatment's going to be and how you're going to take care of yourself with the help of people like Carl, who are having these shows and educating people. But surgery can be wonderful if you find yourself in a position where there's no other option. And the statistics are pretty good, but it is your eyes, and pretty good isn't good enough.
When it comes to your eyes.
If you don't really have to have it. And so, I just want to encourage people that have some faith in your body's own natural healing ability. All it needs is a little support. And the eyes, we found, respond incredibly well to that kind of support. Yeah. They will reward you if you treat them well and give them what they need.
Yeah. Exactly. We're going to take our last commercial break. We'll be right back with more of the discussion. Stay tuned. If you have questions, post them here on Facebook. We'll work them into the show. Stay tuned.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where we use oxygen for the power of good.
Welcome back to Superhuman Radio. You can win a complete Be Strong blood flow restriction system if you go to superhumanradio.net. It will appear as soon as you arrive at the homepage. Click that, enter your name and email address, and you're entered to win. We're going to give one away. The drawing will be at the end of April, and you don't have to be listening to the show when we announce it. We'll email the winner and let them know that they've won. I love these bands. I have been able to rehab my legs. I didn't train legs for 2 years, Leslie, because I had 2 foot surgeries in 2018 that I couldn't do anything. I walked in a boot for almost a year, and I just started training legs again. And one of my greatest disappointments is my legs and my butt used to be so big and strong from deadlifting and squatting for years. And I have half the strength that I used to have. These bands have enabled me to get right back on the horse and make such progress so quickly that I believe in these bands just the way I believe in Can-C eye drops. They work.
Wow.
Really. And as far as Can-C eye drops go, I've been using them now for 14 years. And if they didn't work, I'd know. I do know because when I stop using them, my vision really starts to get horrible. I actually consider maybe I'll need reading glasses. And I'm like, I haven't used Can-C in 2 months. Every morning I put one drop in each of my contact lenses and put them on. At night when I wash up for bed, take my lenses off, I put a drop in each eye about half hour, 45 minutes before I actually go to sleep, I'll read for a while so that I'm blinking and getting it all over the place. There's nothing like these eye drops. I will never stop using them because I want my eyes to be just like they are now. I want to be able to walk into a restaurant. All my friends throw on their readers, and I just grab the menu and read. That's what I do. People hand me that. What does this say? And I look at it for them. Oh, yeah, here's what it says. And I'm going to be 62 this year.
Yeah. We're the same age, Carl. So, it's an incredible product. I will be forever indebted to Dr. Babachea for the work that he did in developing it, as will many people who've been using it. We have customers that have been with us for 15 years, and they just order every month. They order, we have quantity discounts available, but a lot of people just, they just want to do that 1 month order every time, pay the full price. But it's just something to have in your repertoire that just really, really helps protect the health of your eyes. I can't stress it enough. I've been using it all these years as well. It's just a wonderful product to have, and protect your vision. I mean, that's what keeps your mobility, that keeps you, give you your freedom.
Your independence.
Yes, your independence. It's one of the number one fears people have is losing their vision.
I can't even imagine what it must feel like for someone to have to. Well, no, I take that back. When I had the injury on my right eye, I started to night driving became a little bit difficult for me because I didn't have that full peripheral vision. I couldn't judge things that were on my right hand side, and I remember thinking to myself, when some people get older, they start to develop night blindness. They actually have to consider not driving at night. Now, what does that mean? This is what that means. This means that now, if the sundown is 6 o'clock and you're someplace, you have to rush home before 6 o'clock because you can't drive in the dark. It totally changes your life. You are now a slave to sunrise and sunset because you can't drive anywhere in the dark. That has to be so sad. I can't even imagine what that would feel like.
Yeah. And then it's also the distance vision, so you've got your night blindness factor and you've got the distance vision. That's what cataract primarily affects. And so you can't read the road signs as well. I've actually had people who have prescription for distance vision, and they've been using Can-C for a period of time, and they start taking their glasses off because when the vision improves, the prescription can be too strong.
Yes.
And it actually distorts the vision the other way. So they start dropping their glasses down because they feel like they can see the road signs better without their glasses. So you might have to go get a different prescription after you've been using Can-C for a while. Be aware of that as well. But that's the good news. That's the good news. Yeah.
And my vision, it's interesting you say that. I never thought about this before. Mm-hmm. But my contact lens prescription has not changed in over a decade.
Yeah.
And you would think that as I get older, I would need stronger lenses.
That doesn't happen very often, Carl. That you can go, into your 60s without having to have a prescription change. You can use Can-C too, just like you said, dropping it right into your contact lens. Dr. Babachea always recommended doing, some drops with the lens in, some drops with the lens out, kind of mix it up a little bit, because there are some benefits. If you have a contact lens in, it actually holds the liquid in contact with the surface of the eye for a longer period. So there are some added benefits to that as well.
It's called the vault. The vault of the contact lens is the space between the cornea and the back of the lens. And the vault is part of the base curve corrective prescription. But interestingly, I was just thinking, I've been wearing a -5 diopter in the right eye and a -375 diopter in the left eye for pretty much, I don't think I've had a change in prescription for a couple decades now. And I never attributed that. This is the first time I'm making that connection to Can-C because I should have had changes in my prescription by now.
So are you monovision, Carl? Do you see close up with one eye and distance with the other?
No, they're just both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess if I started to have problems with near vision I would consider maybe a bifocal contact lens or something like that.
Mhm.
But they're not
Mhm.
the easiest to wear either because they bounce and then you got to wait
Yeah.
for the ad to come back up where it belongs. And it's, I used to fit them. I used to fit people with these lenses. I know they're a nightmare. A lot of people get used to it.
Yeah, I don't think
wanna-
everybody
wanna do
knows that you went to school to be an optician, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is why he's so technical, everyone. He's way more technical than me and about my own product.
I want to thank you for believing in the show when no one believed in the show. You went through thick and thin with me. You went from when I was on broadcast radio stations and it cost so much money. And then when I said I was going to go straight internet, you said, I'm with you. You've never wavered. You never blinked. You're part of my family. I love you for that. I just want to tell you.
Oh, thank you, Carl. And I've just always been so proud to be part of it and the message that you've tried to communicate to everyone and how many people you've helped. So thanks right back at you.
Thanks for being here. We'll talk again soon, okay?
All right. Take care.